Joining me now to talk about this is Independent Institute Senior Fellow and former Federal Reserve Board nominee Judy Shelton. Judy, let me just jump to it. Let's talk first about whom you are favoring among the 5 candidates on the short list. And then we'll get to who you do not think should get the job.
Well, I think Kevin Hassett would be an excellent choice. We just heard in that answer that he's not willing to say exactly what he will do over the next 6 months.
Yeah.
But I think the good part about Kevin Hassett and why I would choose him is because he has a broad perspective, not just on the monetary part of it, but on the whole economic agenda of President Trump. Now, that happens to be the supply-side economic agenda that is supposed to bring about a transformation of our economy. So I think that Kevin truly appreciates the disinflationary aspects of lower taxes and a lower regulatory burden and savvy energy and trade policies. So he brings that kind of an overview to the position. And I think monetary policy should work in tandem with that because that's a pro-growth economic agenda.
Who do you think should not get it?
Well, I have to say that the fact that Chris Waller is being considered, but that he has been a member of the Board of Governors, despite his saying that he had been making the case for reducing interest rates for quite a long time, he wasn't able to persuade his colleagues. It's one thing to say, here's what I think, but you really have to be persuasive in making your case. And I also would point out that when the Fed lowered rates back in December, almost a year ago, then they held at the January meeting. And then they were concerned about the impact of tariffs, so they stayed there for the March meeting and the May meeting and the June meeting. And it really wasn't until the July meeting, kind of late in the game, that both Chris Waller and Michelle Bowman then dissented. And actually, Chris Waller dissented at the March meeting, but not because of the rate. He explicitly made it clear that he was willing to keep at that restrictive rate. What he objected to was that the Fed was going to slow down, whittling down their portfolio. And he thought they shouldn't stop shrinking it. But again, he wasn't able to persuade his fellow members because, in fact, the Fed ended up stopping the tightening, stopping the runoff a year earlier than they intended. So it's very important to have the leadership quality of making your case and bringing others along with you.
What makes you think, what characteristics do you see within Kevin Hassett that makes you think that he can actually corral some of the no, don't cut voters or the pause cutters or the pause camp? What makes you think that Hassett is the one who can do that? He seems like an incredibly affable guy. Is there something you don't know about it? I'm just so interested to know what you see that makes you believe that he can be the one.
I think that helps. I think the collegiality is a very important factor on the Federal Reserve Board. And I also think that he's thoughtful. He's not just dogmatic, and he's consistent. And I think all of that will help him persuade his fellow members. He's willing to consider their points of view, but he's able to consolidate different points of view into a convincing narrative. And that's part of the ability to be persuasive. And I think he brings that sort of leadership and overview to the position. So it's not a sure thing that he will be the one, but I certainly would feel comfortable if he's chosen.
Well, only one person knows, and that is President Trump. And
That's
we know
right.
that he makes decisions at the last second. Sometimes you think he's going to zig, and he zags. So he has said sometime early next year, we will find out. One of the things that Kevin Hassett said was, depending on the data, we actually got some good jobs data today. The JOLTS number, job openings and labor turnover, came in higher than expected, which means that there are more job openings than fewer from the prior number. And I think that certainly looks like, well, maybe the jobs market isn't weakening at the pace everybody thought it would be. What is the case for cutting rates right now? Because rate cuts are supposed to be a tool that you bring out when we begin to see we're bumping up against a recession or perhaps going in that direction?
That makes me double down on Kevin Hassett, because in fact, Kevin Hassett thinks that access to capital is a very important aspect of a high growth economy. He's never bought into this idea that the economy is doing so poorly. I mean, the shutdown didn't help, but he still looks at the Atlanta Fed saying close to a 4% growth rate, whereas Chris Waller was suggesting we should lower rates because he was very concerned about the labor market. So when the JOLTS report came out saying that there are more job openings than there are unemployed people, that tells us that it's not that you lower rates out of weakness. You lower rates because it's consistent with the supply side agenda, which has these disinflationary aspects, as I said, but is based on seeking growth, not just trying to shore up artificially a weakening economy.
We've got to run, but are you saying that we can actually cut rates and that will stimulate growth, but not inflation at the same time?
Yes, because that trade-off has been debunked. It's so Keynesian. What you really want to do to fight inflation, especially if you're going to get increased demand, is to increase supply. And you do that by granting access to capital, a lower cost of interest to small business. That's where the jobs are. That's where they can finance plant and equipment expansion. And that's how you increase supply. It's higher output. That's the answer to inflation.
Judy, 25 basis point cut tomorrow or 50? No chance of a 50, right?
I think it'll be 25, but we'll see if Stephen Myron pushes for 50.
We shall see. It's great to see you, Judy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Liz.